Hello everyone, welcome back to the fourth video on usability testing of the playlist for human-computer interaction. And today we would be talking about usability tests. All right, so usability testing is this really cool technique that we use to evaluate product or services. So we test it with real users. And yeah, it's real people who actually use your product. And the main goal here is to spot any usability issues, and then we gather some solid quantitative and qualitative data, and then we see how satisfied people are with what you have created. So today we are going to talk about what usability testing is and its importance, what are some of the key aspects, the types and common methods, and lastly we'll just summarize the whole thing all together. So what's usability testing? Usability testing is a technique used to evaluate a product or a service by testing it with representative users. These are like the users who you intend to design for, so you would want to keep them as your participants. So the primary goal is to identify any usability issues, gather qualitative and quantitative data, and then we determine the participant's satisfaction with the product overall. And here are some of the importance of usability testing. So first, what it does is allows us to identify and fix any UX issues. It allows us to measure customer satisfaction, and then early detection of any usability problems can save us money, and it provides us with really beautiful and valuable insights into user behavior, and allows us to avoid our own self-biases towards our own products. But you might be asking what is it that we evaluate? There's honestly a lot of way to look at it, but the way how I see it is inside as a set, and inside that there are the other levels of it. So we start off with looking into all these attributes, which is we want to check for the safety. We want to make sure there's less error. We want to test for how long it takes a participant to shop through an e-commerce website, if that's what we are looking for. And then overall, we want to measure the overall quality and aesthetics of the site. And then we move into the individual components and parts of it, whether or not all the pages are working properly, and if all the buttons are working properly, and if participants are getting what they're looking for. And lastly, we look into the entire level as a whole from a higher perspective. So from prototype to the final product. So all the way from prototyping its functionality to how it's going to look like as a final product. So where is it that we actually evaluate usability tests? And honestly, choosing the right approach depends on what our goals are, right? So let's say we are testing for performance versus experience. For example, if you're measuring performance, such as that speed and accuracy, a lab test must be more appropriate. And if your goal is to just test for user satisfaction, I think a natural setting would be more appropriate in that sense. So in a lab setting, there's going to be a participant and yourself as the researcher. So what you would be doing is you would be observing their actions and assign them certain tasks to do in their laptop, and you will be monitoring it, and you will be taking notes of that as well. So let's take an example. Suppose you have redesigned the web page for Amazon, and you just want to measure how long it takes them to add an order and to complete the shipment. So you would want to measure that in a lab, because the control setting allows for more precise measurements of search times, and also it reduces any sorts of variability that could be related to external factors, because they are inside a lab in a setting, right? Secondly, natural settings provide more realistic and authentic scenarios, and participants use the product in their everyday environment, which allows them to gather more genuine interaction and behaviors, because they're now not bounded within the walls of a lab. So they could use it however they want. And keep in mind, because the evaluation takes place in a real world setting, the findings are typically more generalizable to broader public. So one example I can think of is EA Games actually allows for playtesting, and there's two ways to do that. One of them is to visit their facility and play the games on spot. And the other one is they let you play games at home and you can provide them the feedback. When conducting user evaluations, it's crucial to be aware of the factors that can impact the validity of the results. Well, let's discuss some of these factors and how you can mitigate them. Firstly, the surrounding can significantly affect the validity of our evaluations. Conditions like the weather can actually impact participants' comfort and performance. And then there's the background noise and distractions that can disrupt the process. This might lead to inaccurate results. Secondly, there's bias is a major concern. See, everybody is different, and user bias can arise from the personal characteristics and their overall experience, and this can lead to a skewed data. And then the other factor is the Hawthorne effect. So this effect is basically where the participants modify their behavior because they know that they're being observed, right? And this can result in the data that does not accurately reflect their natural interaction with the product. So to mitigate these factors, we can look into some of these steps. And well, better control of the environment, such as conducting evaluations in a standardized setting, can help us minimize external influences. And then increasing the number of users involved in the evaluation can ensure a diverse participant pool and can reduce individual biases, and it could also provide more representative data. And lastly, a better design of the evaluation process is necessary. One of the ways to do that is by providing them with like a very clear-cut question rather than providing leading questions. So you want to avoid biases, and so for that reason, you wouldn't want them to ask a question like, "How well did you like this product?" Rather, you would want to ask more of a general question like, "Did you like a product?" And if they say yes, then that leads to further questioning. But asking them firsthand how well you like the product is sort of creating a biases. Even if they didn't like the product, they would have to move forward with answering that. Now, let's look into some of the key aspects of usability testing. And to begin with, the first one is representative users. So you would actually want to pick people who reflect your user base. And in this way, the feedback and the data you collected will be relevant, and it will also help you make improvements. So think about testing usability for a scheduling app. Your intended users are going to be college students here, right? And you need to try to be as inclusive as possible in your approach, because you're going to help you develop features you might not have had thought about otherwise. So that is for your representative users. Next, we have tasks. These are designed to stimulate real-world scenarios in which users would interact with your product. These tasks should be typical actions that users need to perform. So for example, if you're testing an e-commerce website, tasks might include finding a product, adding to a cart, and completing the whole checkout process, right? And well-designed tasks help uncover these practical issues. And this leads us to observation. So while they're carrying the tasks, you will be watching your users interacting with your product. And you do that either in person in the lab or remotely. And as an observer, you're looking for any difficulties, hesitations, or errors. Do pay close attention to where users struggle or get confused, as these are like clear indicators of areas that your product is not intuitive. And you gotta take notes while you're observing. And then lastly, there's feedback, right? And this is all about asking users to verbalize their thoughts, frustrations, and experiences as they perform the tasks. Do encourage them to speak out loud about what they are doing and why. And this qualitative data provides you with like a deeper insights into their emotions and cognitive processes. And I think this is crucial for understanding how they perceive and interact with the product, right? It's kind of like getting a peek into their mind while they're using the product. And lastly, we have metrics. So these provide the quantitative data that helps you measure the product's usability or the performance. Common metrics could include, tasks like completion rates, how long it took them to complete a task, then the error rates and the user satisfaction scores, right? And for example, you might find that a user is taking too long to complete a certain task, or they're making a lot of frequent errors in that particular area. So these metrics help you quantify the user's experience and then pinpoint specific areas that needs improvement. So let's actually understand this table here, what's happening. So the first one is moderated testing, and there's 3 different methods to do that. The first one being in person, the other one is remote, and then think aloud protocol. So this is where you are going to be present with the user. You are the facilitator, and there's a participant. So you are going to observe them. You're going to take notes. It's mostly in a lab setting where this happens, and this could be in person in the lab. Then you could also do it remotely, like you could have a Zoom meeting or a Skype call or something, and have them do a certain task, and you could also observe from there. And then there's a think aloud protocol as well, where you ask them to verbalize their thoughts while they're completing the tasks, and you also guide them if they're having difficulty figuring it out. And then there's unmoderated testing, and there's 3 different types of those. So the first one is where participants complete a task independently and their interactions are recorded for later analysis. And this usually requires a software. And then there are surveys and questionnaires that you send out. So think about SurveyMonkey. So after they have completed a task, you can send them a SurveyMonkey link to complete those surveys. And through that, you collect quantitative data on their satisfaction and perceived usability. So A/B testing is the same type of product, but 2 different brands. So you could think of such as Netflix versus Amazon Prime. And let's say you are asked to use both of it, you would be required to ask the participant which one performed better for them and why did it matter, and which one would they choose in their day-to-day life. And there's the quick and low cost testing, which is called guerrilla usability testing. And this is a very quick test, which is like walking in the college campus and just somebody comes up and takes a really quick feedback by using their product. And it generally takes like less than like 5 minutes. And then there's the information architecture category. If you do not know how you are going to organize your data on a website, you would want to use card sorting. And this is where participants organize contents or features into categories that make sense to them. So in my case, when I was redesigning the website for a hospital, we wouldn't know like how and which category should go on the header. And so I had to conduct a usability test with lots of doctors in order to do that. And lastly, there's a behavioral analysis, which is eye tracking. And this heat map is a technology which shows that where the user puts more of their attention. So this tracks where and how long participant looks at different parts of the screen to understand their visual attention. And this involves like using technology to track where and how long they look into. So there's the moderated usability test, where that's you as a participant and that's the user. Again, the remote moderated usability testing, where both the individuals are in 2 different places and they can still run the test. And this is something I did during COVID when I was redesigning an app for my school. And then there's the unmoderated testing, where whatever the user does or how they interact with the tool is later on saved on a software. And there's many softwares now that lets you do that. And then there's the guerrilla usability test. So you can think of how maybe Uber wants to upgrade their Uber Eats services, and maybe they would walk around campuses and ask students how they could improve their UI, and in return they might just want to return them like food voucher or something. So that's one of the ways to do it. And this is cart sorting. So this is for an athletic clothing e-commerce site, and these are some of the basic categories, and these are like what goes inside. A very fantastic way to figure out how users think about it and what do users want to look into each of these. And lastly, this is the heat map. As you can see, the red, the one with the highest saturation of red is basically where users look a lot. And you would want to redesign this whole website depending on how and where you want the user's visual focus to be. So that was pretty much all. And I think there's a lot more out there on usability testing. But this is pretty much all you need to know here. And here I've created a flowchart, and this has helped me immensely whenever I come across usability testing. And definitely ask yourself questions. What is being evaluated and what are the contexts of it, and how, like whether or not you need a verbal thought process or not, and if it requires an expert analysis or not. I would say like go ahead, you can take a screenshot of this, but this flowchart really helps you determine like which sort of usability test to conduct. And that's all for today. Thank you once again. Thank you for watching the video. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to know regarding this course, do leave your comments below. I'll try my best to get back to it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.